Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss something based on a little thread on Twitter from yesterday concerning what Labour do about the extension. And that's what I'd like to talk through here. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So I'll show you a few bits of the thread first of all before I go through my thoughts, my logic on this. So someone was asking here, it says, I really think it's a strategic error of Keir Starmer's not to have called for a Brexit transition extension. Who's with me? Who's against me? No long game arguments, please. Can't bear that phrase anymore. Before I go through my thoughts, I'll say what I immediately said to this. I said that Brexit currently divides the nation. It is probably right to focus entirely on what will unite people against the government, not take an impotent stand on something he'll lose. Wait until public opinion turns more strongly against Brexit. And then there was one comment, and there was a few comments like this, the same sort of theme. But it will be too late by then. We won't be able to fix it. And there were other comments, variations on the theme. Now, here is the difficulty. When Keir Starmer first sort of announced that they weren't going to be pushing for the extension, they're making it clear that it's not that they're opposed to that at all. They fully support it, but they're just taking the view that, you know what, the government said they can get a deal, so we're not going to block it. We're not going to put them in a position where they go, oh, it was everyone else's fault. They can own it. We're just leaving it. Now, I said at the time, I would have said, I think we should get a Brexit extension, but I also listened to, understood, and more importantly, agreed with Labour's position as stated by Keir Starmer. Here is the reality of the situation. I need to take this in two parts. First of all, the reality for Labour as well as other opposition parties, and then there's also but it will be too late and how devastating it will be if there isn't an extension, and that I'll tackle as well. So from Labour's point of view, they have to be realistic, and everyone needs to be realistic. Labour are the largest opposition party. That doesn't mean the same thing now as it did 7 months ago, let's say. And because they are far, far behind. The Conservatives have a majority of 80 MPs. Point one. They have an absolute majority. The only way an opposition party can beat the government on anything is if they get support from Conservative MPs. And this is why Keir Starmer has been able to beat the government on several occasions. Most famously on the NHS surcharge issue and the free school meals issue. Okay, by getting public support, and there were others involved in those campaigns, well, of course, but by getting government's public support for the government to change their policies, and then for Labour and other opposition MPs to put pressure on Conservative MPs into backing it as well. That is why the government U-turned there. That's not going to happen with the transition period. And the reason is this. For the general election in December, Boris Johnson banned anyone in the Conservative Party from standing as a candidate unless they signed up to his Brexit strategy, which included not seeking an extension to the transition period, even if it meant a no-deal Brexit. They all had to sign up to that. They've all publicly nailed their colours to that mast. Now, yes, there are still some Conservative MPs who we know really don't want that position. They don't support that position. However, because that was the situation, you've got to think quite a lot of Conservative MPs now, including a lot of the new ones, are genuinely of that view. They believe in it because they had to sign up to it. So the only people you've now got on the Conservative backbenchers are the MPs who genuinely think that it's right not to extend the transition under any circumstances, and those who sold their souls and publicly said that that's what they believe anyway, regardless of whether they do or they do not. And a lot of pressure would be put on them to say, well, you're actually breaking your word to your constituents if you try and force the Prime Minister to seek an extension. That is not realistic. Labour cannot put any pressure on those Conservative MPs to get the Prime Minister to seek an extension, and Boris Johnson himself would not be allowed because it would cause a massive split in the party. There are a lot of the Conservative Party now, and it was a minority in the last Parliament, it's a majority now, that actually want the no-deal Brexit, actively want it. So, if Labour were to campaign rigorously for an extension to the transition period, two things would happen. One, they would lose, and they would look impotent as a result of it. They are trying to fashion themselves into a party that the people believe is a government in waiting. The latest polls suggest that there are now more people who believe that Keir Starmer looks like a Prime Minister in waiting than do not. There are still some who are not sure, which is actually fair enough. That is not the same for Labour at the moment, but they are making up ground. Labour are still not considered by the public at large to be the party that is fit and ready for government. They need to get them ready for that in a few years' time. That is not going to be helped by looking weak. They have to get wins. Things like getting the government to U-turn on the bereavement scheme, the surcharge scheme, the free school meals. All of those things help Labour look strong and the Conservatives look weak. The other reason is this. Boris Johnson would absolutely love it for Keir Starmer to say, let's talk about the extension, because I think you should seek an extension to the transition period. Boris Johnson would love it. His political advisors would be giddy with anticipation. Why? Because it is an issue that divides the nation. The Conservatives desperately want to argue something that divides the nation. Desperate for it. They'd love to argue Brexit. In a year's time might be a different matter. I hope it will be a different matter. But right now they'd love it. That is the hill that they really want to fight their battles on. And that is because they've got a hell of a lot of support for it. It doesn't have to be majority. They didn't have a majority of people vote for them to put them in their 80-seat majority position in Parliament. They just know it would be something that they would love to fight it on, because Boris Johnson can then come out with these brainless platitudes of Brexit means Brexit and we hold the cards and they'll back down and I've got my negotiating strategy and blah, 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 blah. And he can promise all the things. Boris Johnson, you will notice, if you've watched Prime Minister's Questions, loves it when he can talk about something that's going to happen. Even with the coronavirus, Keir Starmer has focused basically on the coronavirus and its impacts, particularly on inequalities in the country. And Boris Johnson usually bats away awkward questions by talking about what's going to happen. He says, oh, yeah. When Keir Starmer says, this should be in place now, and why isn't it? Oh, yeah, but in 2 weeks' time it's going to be. In a month's time it's going to be. In 3 days' time it's going to be. He keeps talking about what's going to be. Brexit is a classic argument for what's going to be. Hasn't happened yet. The consequences haven't happened yet. We're still in the single market. Now, that is not what the Brexiteers call Brexit. So Brexit's still going on as far as they're concerned. Fine. So what you would do is you allow the Conservatives to fight the battle they want on the battleground they want to fight it on. You ease the political pressure. At the moment, Keir Starmer and Labour have put the Conservatives under massive pressure. Look at the results. You've got the Daily Mail, you've got the Times, you've got the Telegraph, the Spectator, the New Statesman. All of them on an almost daily basis bashing the Conservatives in terms of their handling of various things, but most notably the coronavirus. You know, you've only got the Express and the Sun that are still batting for the Conservative government. They're the only ones. If you start poking at Brexit, you will get the likes of the Daily Mail, the Telegraph and all that lot back on the Conservative side. Maybe not the Times, because they think it's absolute lunacy. Even the Telegraph think there should be an extension, but they're still a Brexit paper. You ease pressure off Boris Johnson. You immediately remove the pressure off Boris Johnson that has been heaped upon him. At the moment, it's absolutely inevitable that Boris Johnson is not going to be leading the Conservatives in the next election. They can't afford to let him. He's been beaten all hands down. If you ease the pressure off him, that will not be the case. So now, finally, onto the thing about, the comment here, and there were variations on it, but it will be too late by then. We won't be able to fix it. Absolutely true. There is no getting away from the fact, taking out of the politics for now. Absolutely devastating. I'll maybe remind people, if you're newish to the channel, or then you won't know this, but about over a year ago, I was saying that, there were some Remainers who were saying, well, let's just go for the no deal Brexit. If that's what they want, it'll show people exactly what Brexit is, and people will change their minds back more quickly, and that might be the best outcome. And I argued against it on the basis of the fact there's a lot of innocent people going to suffer. We're not talking about people who voted Brexit and it's their own fault. And even then, I think that's still harsh. I'm talking about people who voted to remain and will still suffer, millions of them. And that was the reason. And the same thing is sort of true now, but there's nothing we can do about it. There is nothing. The battle was lost in December. It's over. It is over. The war isn't over, but the battle is. There's no point sniffing around the battlefield. It's gone. It's finished. And that is all there is to it. And it's unfortunate. And I know people are going, but we've still got 6.5 months left and we could extend the transition period. We can't. The only people with the power to do so are Conservative MPs. There is not enough public opinion of that mind, because for every letter that you send to your Tory MP, if you live in a Tory constituency, saying, I want an extension, this is going to be really damaging to the local area, you can do all your research and say, look, this is going to damage this business, it's going to cost all these jobs in this local constituency, you need to push for an extension. They will just say that they're getting just as many letters, if not more, saying how important it is not to cave into the EU. And that is all there is to it. We are, at the moment, in a losing position. All you can do now is regroup and wait for the next battle. The next battle is after this has happened. And yes, any number of things can happen in politics. I'm not mapping out the rest of 2020. Good God, who would dare do that after what's happened so far? I wouldn't have done that in the first place anyway. But I am telling you this, there is not a thing anyone outside the Conservative Party can possibly do to get this extension. We have to accept that. We have to accept that unless something remarkable happens later this year, that we are going to be leaving without an extension. At which point, then the opposition needs to be saying to the government, what about all these job losses? What are you going to do about it? No, don't even bother playing the blame game. What are you going to do about all this unemployment? What are you going to be doing about the fact that these businesses are no longer able to export their goods, and not just to the EU, to other countries with whom we had a trade agreement? What are you doing about trade agreements? You kept banging on about the trade agreement with Japan. What's happening with it? You said, Boris Johnson has said that he is going to get a trade deal with the EU this July 2020. When we're in January 2021, ask him, where's this trade deal you said we were going to get back in July? Not even by the end of the year. In July, he said it. Ask him, where is the EU trade deal? Where is the Japan trade deal? Don't ask about the US trade deal. Where is the Canada trade deal? Where is the Australia trade deal? Where is the India trade deal? Where are they? That's what you'll do. You'll ask them. Every time a load of people lose their jobs because the company had to go under, why is that? When British farms are struggling, why is that? When British farms lower their standards to be able to compete with cheap US imports, why is that? Why are we lowering our standards when you said you were going to raise them, if anything? That is what we have to do. Will it be too late to fix certain things? Yes, damage has been done. Damage has been done, and it's permanent. And we will not recover. In my lifetime, we will not recover from what has already happened. But we are not going to win the next battle by sniffing around the battlefield of the battle that has just been lost. And it's unfortunate, but that's the reality. So those are my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. If you'd like to support the channel further, please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.